Starting January 1st, 2025, the e-invoicing obligation begins. An e-invoice is an electronic invoice in a structured format. This does not mean what we would traditionally understand as an electronic invoice, such as a PDF document, but rather a legally mandated file format. In the future, invoices must be issued either as X-invoices or as ZUGFeRD. Starting January 1st, 2025, there will initially only be the legal obligation to be able to receive such invoices. And since both X-invoices and ZUGFeRD can be easily sent via email, it is sufficient to simply have an email address for receiving them. And so, nothing will change for you initially, at least in the year 2025. Starting in 2027 or 2028, you will also have to issue X-invoices or ZUGFeRD. Since this will happen anyway in the near future, at this very moment is actually the right time to take a look at your accounting processes and see how to manage everything digitally and automatically. By the way, if you are worried about high costs regarding e-invoices, take a look at the video I linked to here in the top right. I presented a few solutions there that allow you to create e-invoices for free. In this video, we want to clarify the question of which invoice format is better. In the past, it was never regulated in which format such an invoice had to be issued. It was only regulated what information must be included in such an invoice. So, the address of the service provider, recipient date, performance date, and so on. This means that this has always been regulated, but the file format was never regulated. And now there is X-invoice or ZUGFeRD. And I would like to start the comparison with a PDF invoice. A PDF invoice is not an e-invoice and therefore will no longer be allowed in the future. However, you can still send PDF invoices for another 2 or 3 years. And to be honest, for most of us, the PDF is the starting point. So let's take a look at such a PDF file. So we are here in my folder and we see 3 invoices, specifically 3 different invoices because they are 3 different file formats. And first, we will take a look at invoice 26. To be honest, this is relatively unspectacular at first. It is a simple PDF invoice. That means it is exactly the kind of PDF invoice we are familiar with. Here is the invoice from the service provider, the invoice number, and so on. This is a completely normal PDF invoice, and I can process it like this when I receive it. I can print it out if I want. Very, very important, in case any of you expect that you do not have to print an invoice that you receive digitally. So the original is the PDF that you received. You do not have to print such invoices. Yes, and you can read the invoice visually just like normal. That means you can take a look at it. You can check the bank details at the bottom. You can simply transfer the money. And that's it. The past was that simple. At least this invoice format was quite practical for us as humans. Accounting software actually had recurring problems with it. I mean, the invoice is not greatly designed. It is relatively clearly structured and has good contrasts. However, it is indeed the case that this invoice must be read visually because it is like an image file. And accounting software struggles with this to some extent because these invoices are simply structured differently. Sometimes they have different colors, logos, layouts. Thus, accounting software may not recognize contents. The description of services is at the top right, in the middle, or at the bottom. The account details are located in different places each time and so on. This means that accounting software has indeed faced challenges with this sometimes. And that's why there are now the 2 new file formats. And the first new file format we want to look at is the X-invoice. The X-invoice is basically the complete opposite of the PDF invoice because the X-invoice is a purely machine-readable format. Ultimately, the X-invoice is an XML file, which means it looks a bit like computer code, and in this code, all the information that is also on such an invoice is included. Description of services, date of service, invoice, and so on. All of this is included in this code, and machines can read this incredibly well. This means that these invoices in XML format can simply be uploaded to your accounting software, and then the information from this invoice does not need to be read visually anymore, but can be processed directly. This makes everything significantly easier for accounting software and speeds up the entire accounting process. And we will also take a direct look at an X-invoice. And we are back in my folder, and here we see the invoice 25.xml. This is an X-invoice, and we can open it. We will open it in a text editor, and then we will see the invoice, which looks as follows. As I said, this is basically like computer code. And theoretically, we can read out information here, such as payment terms, payment within 14 days. Then we see here is my name somewhere in it. However, it becomes relatively difficult when I, as a customer, receive such an invoice. Because if I don't have software with which I can visualize everything properly, then it's not so easy to find out what I'm supposed to pay for and where I should pay it. This means that an X-invoice is convenient for the accounting software, but honestly, it is rather unfriendly for people to read. And if you're not sure that your customer has an invoicing program, an accounting program, then this format is not particularly recommended because you run the risk of not getting your money or getting it late, as your customer simply cannot do anything with this file. And for that, there is a hybrid form between PDF and XML, and that is the so-called ZUGFeRD, and we will take a look at it now. The ZUGFeRD format is actually a combination of the two formats seen, that is a PDF and an XML file. Humans can view the PDF normally, and the machine can easily read the XML file. This is actually the best of both worlds. And we will take a look at that as well. We are back in my invoice folder, and here we see invoice 27, specifically invoice 27.pdf. So this appears to be a PDF, just like invoice 26, which we looked at first as well. However, if we look at the file size now, we see that this invoice 27 is at least about as large as the XML invoice and the PDF invoice combined. This means it must be something more than just a PDF invoice. And we will simply open that as well, and we can open it with all the programs that we can also use to open PDFs, and we will do that now. And we will simply see an invoice that looks like a normal PDF invoice, such as a standard one. For now, it is simply a PDF invoice, but with a special feature. This PDF invoice actually has an integrated XML file. And now the question arises, how do I know that is not a PDF invoice? Because it looks like a PDF invoice. It has the PDF extension and can be opened like a PDF. Why is this not a PDF? Or how can I actually recognize that this is a ZUGFeRD invoice and that this is now an e-invoice? The ZUGFeRD invoice is a PDF invoice with an attached XML file. And we can look at attached information or files by clicking on the paperclip on the right here. And there we see that this ZUGFeRD invoice or this PDF invoice actually has an attachment. And that's why this invoice is not a pure PDF invoice, but rather a ZUGFeRD invoice, because it includes a PDF and an XML file. And here we can also simply open this XML file with a double click. And then we see the invoice information that we visually represented on the PDF now here as well, in XML format indeed. This means that a ZUGFeRD invoice ultimately includes both. The ZUGFeRD file serves both the human with the visual representation and the accounting program with the XML file. And ultimately, that is also the reason why I would recommend that you write ZUGFeRD invoices. Because all the people who do not have an accounting program yet, or those who do not need to receive e-invoices at all, for example, if you write invoices for a customer, then they do not have to be e-invoices. However, you still want to receive the money. And then honestly, it makes no sense to send this customer an XML file. And cumbersome, sending the customer PDF invoices, then sending the corporate customers X invoices. Just write a ZUGFeRD invoice for all your customers, and those who would like to view the PDF can do so. Can then continue to work with it, and those who have professional software can make just as much use of the file format because the software simply continues to use the XML data. This means that ultimately, with the ZUGFeRD file, all your customers will be happy. And you also ensure that this invoice is paid promptly because it can definitely be read and processed by your customers regardless of how your customer works. However, I have a small warning. The ZUGFeRD data format has a problem. Namely, there are essentially two documents in one. What do we do if something different is stated in the PDF, that is in the visual representation, than in the X invoice? The risk exists, at least theoretically. This will not happen in normal business transactions. But if someone indeed has fraudulent intentions, it could be conceivable to send you a PDF invoice that states one account number or amount, while the XML file shows a double amount, for example. And if you, as a person, check the PDF and say, well, that looks correct. In the background, the machine is working with the information from the XML file which contains the double amount. Then it is quite possible that you accidentally pay too much. That's why you should pay attention, especially at the beginning, that the data taken by the accounting program from the XML part matches the information visually seen on the PDF, or the PDF portion of the ZUGFeRD invoice. In summary, it can be said that with the introduction of the e-invoicing obligation, a few small things need to be adjusted. However, since significantly more work is not waiting for you, rather less, because the accounting program simply knows more reliably what is on these invoices. And if you use a professional accounting program, then honestly, you don't really have any problems with it. We just looked at the 3 invoices as a pure file format. Usually, I don't open these invoices on my desktop or in a folder, but in my accounting program. And here we see the 3 invoices. First, the PDF invoice. I can simply open it here and view it as I would normally view a PDF invoice. And then we look at the ZUGFeRD invoice. We see it here and we recognize it by the fact that it says e-invoice here and that the document format is PDF, ZUGFeRD. This means I know that this is now an e-invoice. I click on it and the structure here in the visualization looks exactly the same. And last but not least, the X-invoice. We click on it and we see again here e-invoice, document format XML, so X-invoice. We click on it and here in the accounting program everything is visualized for me like this. All other invoices as well. If you have an accounting program, then you have no problem with the presentation and any attachments to a PDF file and so on, but you can simply upload your invoices here. Here is also the note, and then it simply shows you whether it is in fact an e-invoice or not. But the obligation to actually have an e-invoice does not take effect until 2025, but rather from 2027 or 2028. I hope this video was able to help you and answer your questions. If you still have questions about the topic of e-invoices, accounting in general, X-invoice, ZUGFeRD invoice, PDF, or anything else, write your questions and comments below in the comment section. And if you think this program looks cool, I want to have it too, check the video description, linked it for you there. You will also find a few alternatives, or you can just click directly here. And now you could just watch another video on this channel. I have prepared a few, around 6, 7, 800. For example, this one or that one.